All right, let's dive right in and crack the code on the 2016 UP PGT economics exam. We're going to tackle a 10-question challenge running through numbers 91 to 100. But this isn't just about getting the right answers. We're going to decode the core concepts behind them that you absolutely have to know. Ready? Let's get started.
Here's how we're going to do it. We'll split this into 2 rounds, 5 questions each, and then at the end we'll do a super quick recap to lock in all the key takeaways. Simple as that.
Okay, let's get into round 1. Our first 5 questions are all about some really critical areas: banking, poverty, and public finance. First up, question 91. So our first question is all about making sure our banks are safe and sound. What do we call that specific ratio between a bank's own money and its risky assets? Well, the answer is D, the capital to risk-weighted asset ratio, or CRAR for short.
Think of CAR as a bank's financial safety net. It's basically a rule that says, hey, for all the risky loans and investments you have, you need to keep a certain amount of your own capital as a cushion. It's a vital sign of a bank's health. Okay, shifting gears now from financial regulations to economic development. We're looking for a program aimed at fighting poverty by helping people start their own businesses. And the correct answer here is A, NREP. The NREP, which kicked off back in 1980, was a direct shot at tackling rural poverty. The idea wasn't just to give handouts, but to empower people by creating real opportunities for self-employment. It's a classic strategy in development economics. Now for a fascinating question about how government spending actually works in the real world. Who came up with the ideas of displacement and concentration? You got it. The answer is B, Alan T. Peacock and Jack Wiseman.
So this hypothesis is really cool because it challenges the idea that government spending just grows steadily over time. Peacock and Wiseman said, no, that's not how it works. They argued it happens in big jumps, usually sparked by a major crisis like a war. Public spending gets displaced to a whole new level, and even after the crisis ends, it tends to stay there. That's the concentration effect.
Here's a pretty straightforward but important one on public finance. When the government spends money on its day-to-day operations, general services, how is that classified? It's considered A, revenue expenditure.
And the rule of thumb here is really simple. If the spending doesn't create a lasting physical asset, like a new highway or a hospital, then it's revenue expenditure. It's the money that keeps the lights on and the government running day to day.
All right, time for a classic exam-style question. Find the mismatch. 3 of these pairs make perfect sense together, but one is the odd one out. Take a second. Can you spot which one doesn't belong? And there it is. The incorrect match is C. Here's why. Disinflation just means the rate of inflation is slowing down. Prices might still be going up, just not as fast as before. A dear money policy, which means high interest rates, can cause disinflation, but they aren't the same thing. So that's our mismatch.
Okay, round 1 is in the books. Let's kick off round 2. We're shifting gears a bit now, looking at international economics, some statistics, and market structures. Let's go with question 96.
So we all know about the IMF's special drawing rights, or SDRs. But what are they? Physically, can you hold one? Is it gold? The answer is actually kind of surprising. It's D. They exist only as a bookkeeping entry.
That's right, you can't hold an SDR in your hand. It's not a currency you can spend at the store. Think of it more like an accounting tool or a claim check that gives a country the right to access other hard currencies, like the US dollar or the euro, when it needs to.
Okay, from international finance, we're jumping straight into statistics. This is a fundamental concept. If you have a perfectly symmetrical distribution, a perfect bell curve, what will its skewness value be? The answer is always be 0.
And this visual shows you exactly why. In a symmetrical distribution, the mean, the median, and the mode all fall on the exact same spot, right in the center. Since the data is perfectly balanced on both sides, there's no skew or lean to the left or right. So the value is 0. Simple as that. Back to macroeconomics we go. The accelerator principle is a powerful idea. But which famous economist was the one who really applied it to explain the ups and downs of the business cycle? The correct answer is B, Hicks.
So Hicks's big contribution, his genius move really, was combining 2 powerful ideas that were already out there, the multiplier and the accelerator. He showed that it's the interaction between these 2 forces that really drives the economic booms and busts that we call the business cycle.
Here's a concept that's absolutely fundamental to microeconomics, the law of diminishing returns. Now, the key question is, when is it relevant? In the short run or the long run? And the answer is, it applies specifically to A, the short period.
The too many cooks in the kitchen analogy is perfect here. The kitchen itself is your fixed input. You can't make it bigger in the short run. As you keep adding more cooks, your variable input, at first, things are great. But eventually, they start bumping into each other, and the extra output you get from each new cook starts to fall. That, in a nutshell, is diminishing returns.
And here we are, our final question, number 100. This one is all about market structures. If you see a cartel, what kind of market are you looking at? A cartel is a classic textbook feature of B, an oligopoly.
So what is a cartel, really? Well, it happens when the few big firms in an oligopoly get together and secretly agree to stop competing with each other. They decide to act like one giant monopoly so they can fix prices, control supply, and rake in higher profits. And that, of course, is exactly why they're illegal in most places.
Phew, we did it. 10 questions down. That was a pretty wild ride, covering everything from banking rules to market structures. So let's take just a second to run through a final recap and make sure these key concepts are locked in.
So here it is, your 10-point takeaway. We have CARAR, a bank's capital cushion, NREP, an anti-poverty program, the Peacock-Wiseman hypothesis, explaining jerky government spending, revenue expenditure, spending that doesn't build assets, disinflation, which is just slowing inflation, SDRs, the IMF's accounting asset, skewness, which is zero for symmetrical data, Hicks's trade cycle, where the multiplier meets the accelerator, diminishing returns in the short run, and finally, cartels, the feature of an oligopoly. Mastering these is a huge step forward.
So after all that, here's a final question for you to think about. We've jumped from macro to micro, from stats to international finance, all in just 10 questions. Which of these areas felt like the biggest challenge for you? Whatever just popped into your head, that's probably your next study mission. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.